Good evening and welcome to Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation. It is Monday night all over again, and I am your host, Donna Gray Banks. And tonight, our special guest is L.D. Robinson. She's an author, a web designer, and a publisher, and she has several other talents that we're going to speak about this evening. And thank you for being here, L.D., my friend. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, my friend.
Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation is sponsored by Eileen's Diamonds LLC, the Fresh Book Festival, which will be held in the beautiful city of Daytona Beach, 23, 24, 25 February in 2023. And mark your calendars, please. We'd like all of you to join us. Also, join me at the Museum of the Arts in Florida as we present the fifth and final Black Artist Talk. It has been amazing. Those of you who have missed it, please try to be a part of it next year. Paul Houzell, if you don't know him, look him up, Houzell, Friday, July 15th at 5 p.m. Join us at the Museum of the Arts. If you have a question for LD, please leave it in the chat room. We will try to get to all her questions this evening. And LD, please take a moment to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. Joining Donna while she's got me here. My name, obviously, is L.D. Robinson, and I'm glad to be here. I am an author. I am a publisher. I wear a lot of hats. I'm auntie. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister, and I enjoy all those roles. I'm a granddaughter.
Yes.
And work-wise, a number of things. You know, I'm also a consultant.
So turn up your mic just a little bit if you can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah, just a little bit more.
Is that better?
Yes. Okay. So I know a lot more about you than most people, but since this is Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation, let's talk about your books first. We'll talk about the rest of the wonderful things that you do. But tell us about your publishing journey when you weren't a publisher, right? And you were just starting out with your publishing experience.
Well, I decided to write a book based on a conversation I had with one of my cousins. We were talking about dating, and I decided to write a book. It was based on multicultural dating. And that was my first book, which is titled Hot Enough to Melt Chocolate. And in the process of working to discover how to publish that book, I was led to start a publishing company, really having no idea that the career I'd had prior to that was, you know, at an end. It had ended and I didn't know it.
Right.
But the publishing seemed like, oh, this will be something, you know, extra, you know, kind of on the side, you know, I could just do publishing my books. Because I tell you that once you write one book, you're probably going to have the urge to write another book. You may feel compelled to write another book once you write one book. Getting a book out of you is something that is, even if it's fiction, it's cathartic in a way of sorts. And so it's very fulfilling getting your thoughts on paper and seeing those thoughts read by other people. You know, that experience, I don't think is something to be experienced, I guess I would say. And so that's how I ended up with a publishing company. My other career came to a halt that I did when I didn't know it. And
so I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you published your first book.
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did?
My
okay.
First book under Ladero Press.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know that. Tell us about that journey, because you had to be a novice, right?
Oh,
and
novice,
that was,
I speak.
Yeah, and so that was back in what year?
That was 2017.
2017, right?
It was 2017.
And so now
I knew nothing.
Right, exactly. Now back then, you have a great graphic artist now, but back then, how did you get covers done? How did you get your editing done? How did that happen?
Um, well, I did my own editing. um, but I also had beta readers. And so I had,
Okay, listen,
um,
that's a word some people don't know.
yeah, so I had people who excuse me, they pre-read the book for you and provide feedback about the content of the book. And so one of those was my auntie, who is So Hot Enough to Melt Chocolate is a romance novel. And my auntie, one of my aunties, my auntie Barbara, is, well, I have two auntie Barbaras, but one of my auntie Barbaras, she is a romance reader. And um, we met at Denny's so she could give me her feedback. And she broke out this notebook and she had like pages. I tell you, I was crushed. I really was. I was literally crushed because here I thought I had written, this book that, I thought, man, I got this on, I got it on paper. I've read it several times. I've edited. I've cut myself. I've had my own knife and cut myself, right? But
Yeah,
the
understood.
cutting was not done.
Mm.
It was not done. Um, and that is one of the probably most critical lessons that I learned as an author, but also as a publisher. Having people read your book is very important before you go to press. It's always nice to have people read it after you go to press, but having them read it before you go to press may determine how much they read it afterwards. Um, it was a humbling experience
Yeah, I'm
because
sure.
I spent, you know, a whole career, almost 2 decades, writing technical papers and project plans and all that stuff. And she came with her pages of notes. And you know what? I sucked it up at that table and we walked right through each one of them. And she's still a fan.
Well, I mean, criticism is hard to take, whether it's constructive or not, right? It just is, especially when you think you've written War and Peace, and then you find
I
out you
know.
haven't. Then
You
you find
have,
out you have not
yeah,
written War and Peace, right? And
yes.
so, how did in 2017, Amazon was not really popping. I think it was a lot, but it wasn't really popping, right? It wasn't really
It
doing.
was there. They had some flavor. What it's not like it is today. It has evolved a lot in 5 years, but there was still a platform there. Um,
But their
but
focus wasn't books, really.
no, their
It's
focus was in
products.
books,
Mm-hmm. It was
and
products.
it still is in books, but it
Right.
is they are the largest bookstore, on the
Mm-hmm.
planet right now. And that is they've had to evolve as authors have and publishers have demanded their evolution in supporting what they do.
And so let's talk about your covers.
Mhm.
How did that happen? Because that had to be.
Well, the cover for Hot Enough to Melt Chocolate was actually done by an illustrator in Daytona, and I met her at the same workshop where I was inspired to finish my book. She had done the illustration for um, this children's book, and I asked, and she was there at the workshop, and so that's how I connected with her. It was a workshop hosted by Angie B, and that's where I got my first cover. It was a young illustrator and a talented illustrator. I do know more now about
Yes.
genre and timing and what's popular in a genre.
Right.
So I know a lot more now.
And so let's fast forward. Your first company you started was Ladero Press. That's correct?
No, my first company was Ladero Consulting Group,
Okay,
and
go
I
ahead.
did that to support my, is how I did my engagements through my consulting career.
And then
Excuse
go
me.
ahead. And then Ladero Press.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. And Ladero Press, tell us about that journey, because becoming a publisher is also not easy.
No, it wasn't. I think I kind of went really fast when I realized that my consulting career had come to a halt. Um, so I took on projects earlier than I should have. Instead of practicing being a publisher on other people, I should have just practiced on myself.
Right, right.
I can admit that now. I really should have, slowed that train down a little bit and just refine things, because in that first year, I signed I signed 4 authors within a year of being a publisher.
Mm.
And that was a lot. Just because everything from I was the editor, I was the publisher, I was making all the arrangements for, the cover design, the formatting, all of that I was doing. And so I certainly would recommend that if you're going to do that, you refine that process with your own products where it doesn't hurt as much at the end of the day.
Now, one of your most famous authors is writes my genre, of course.
Yes.
And tell us about this woman and how she wrote so. Oh my goodness, I don't know how she does it. And her name is escaping me.
Francesca Penn.
Francesca.
Francesca came to us in 2018, and I believe 2018, and she writes interracial, multicultural, erotic romance. And so, in the course of that, she became very prolific. She writes a lot. Right now, she's no longer with Ladero Press because she is so, she's so um, productive, I will say, that, we had a conversation and I told her, it's like, look, this is what this is what you can do. And I think it's probably better that, you go your own way, because we don't have the bandwidth to support, a book every 6 weeks. You just gotta. And she is a top earning and top selling author on Amazon.
Francesca Penn, everybody. She's a phenomenal writer.
She sells books, and I always tell her, I say, we'll say that we saw you first. We find you first. She writes now under multiple pen names.
Yeah, pen names, right. Yeah. So as a publisher, what are the 2 things that you consistently must remind a writer to do before sending their manuscript to you?
The first thing is I tell them to read your book aloud. Read your book aloud. Print your book and read it aloud. Because there are things that our brains fill in for us because we know what something should be. And it doesn't really matter whether or not it's actually there. Our brains fill in the gaps for us. And when it does that, we frequently miss things in writing. And so when you read it aloud, you get another impression of your book that you may not get when you are just when you're just reading your manuscript. I also tell people, have someone read it for you. Give the manuscript to someone. Get your band-aids out, like I needed with my auntie. Just make sure you can cover the wounds and keep going. They heal up and you become a better author.
Mm. And okay, so it's read out loud and everyone is, Patricia Wiley, how'd you get it from?
I was like, P?
It's not muted.
Mute yourself. She's crazy.
Oh, gee.
Thank you so much. Anyway, I forgot what I was saying. She let's talk about you being a boutique publishing company? Talk about that.
Well, Ladero Press is a small press. And so we are considered a small press because of the number of titles that we put out every year. Large tier one presses are those that put out thousands of titles a year. They, you may not see them promote them all, but they put out thousands of titles. They sign lots of authors, and sometimes they sign those books and just hold them until trends come about, and it means, all right, we've got this book in our pocket to come out, right? We've got this book that we can put in the market because the market is ripe for it. And so in terms of those titles, those are just the titles of the books. And with those, so we are considered a small press. And in that, we publish books across every genre. We have 9 imprints, and we're always looking for books to bring on with our different imprints. And that's just where we are. It's a nice space to be in because you get to learn your lessons, perhaps sometimes at a little costly pace, but sometimes not quite that. Okay.
When people decide to come to you, do you automatically tell them the timeline? Because a lot of people don't understand that this process takes time. So do you kind of go over the timeline with them? Speak on
We
that.
discuss timeline. I would tell you that our experience, and we've adjusted simply because with COVID showed us that there were other things that we needed to take into account in terms of our production.
Yes.
Because even for us, some of our vendors still are not at production levels where they were before. For example, one of our printers, they used to have where you could get rush service.
No more.
And you could get that in amount of time. You had to pay for it, but you could get this rush service. And right now, and even maybe there's second tier service, used to be a certain number of days, but that has not decreased. And I've looked forward to, kind of go back to pre-COVID levels, and that hasn't happened. So everything in terms of your supply chain, you really have to start thinking about, like, what does it take to get this book to market? But one of the more important things, I believe, is simply the rounds of making sure that the book's exterior and interior are what you desire it to be. And as a reader, I want that book to delight me, not just on the outside, but also on the inside. And that's everything from formatting to paper to all those decisions. So yes, we do discuss that, but we also let authors know that there are things that may change this timeline based on what we experience. From our perspective, we have thankfully been able to add editors so that, I'm not a bottleneck to getting things out. And so that's the blessing.
Okay, so now we go from 1 company to 3. We have the Ladero Press, Ladero Design Works, and now PentoPress, right? Yeah. So tell us the difference between those 3 companies that you have now.
Okay. Excuse me. Ladero Press is our traditional publishing company. Is where we sign authors and we finance that process, of getting that book to market, and even aftermarket activities. So in that, the author is not required to spend any funds. We, the company Ladero Press, we spend those funds to bring that book to market, and we pay traditionally in terms of royalties. We pay those royalties based on sales and revenue, and we pay those based on every market where that book is sold. Ladero Design Works was birthed out of Ladero Press, actually, because I did not have, the resources to do my website, to do social media. I just knew, okay, so I know this and I know this, and my background, I have my background is in business, so I knew there were a lot of things that needed to be done. But when your cash flow, takes a bit of a halt, and I can spend my time, I could pay somebody to do this, but I could also learn how to do this myself and save this and put that money towards, say, I don't know, electricity.
Right. Mortgage.
Yes,
Water.
those things, right? So I started building websites and doing my social media myself, and that birthed a whole new business in terms of what I do with websites and graphic design and all those things. From that, because of the work as a publisher, I get a lot of inquiries about helping people do certain things. And one of those authors is on here, and that is Patricia Watley. And I was recommended to her for help her with her book. In the course of that, we thought this book would come out like within maybe a year's time, something.
Right.
It took 2 years to come out. There were events that happened that really needed to be put in the book. We were doing this in the middle of COVID. That had had its impacts as well. But she's the inspiration for PentoPress by Ladero. And that is for people who really want to publish their book. They don't necessarily want to be with a publisher, but they want the consulting advice. They want the expertise in helping them to get that book to market and doing certain things with them throughout the process. Now, she's published a little differently, but she's more of a PentoPress, kind of client.
Right.
PentoPress just wasn't available then, so she is published under our real imprint by Ladero.
Now, tell the audience the different genres that you have undertaken and been successful at. One is a fabulous cookbook.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's fabulous. So, I mean, there were some bumps in the road, but listen, it's a fabulous book. Yeah.
A few bumps.
Yeah. I just want the audience to know that there are no limitations, as far as I know, about what you will receive. I mean, I'm sure there are some limitations, but so far in the genres, you have several.
Yes, so we publish across all genres. We do not currently have, we review every manuscript that comes to us. I read, and I can say I and my editors read. A few of them may be on here. We've added Zandra George out of the Pacific Northwest, who is an editor with us. And we have Bonnie McClendon, who is an editor who's joining us as well as an editor. And so both have extensive backgrounds. They have the same mindset, that I have, and, share the vision for getting out good products. And so that's extremely important to us. But right now we have 9 imprints. We print everything. There are books pending in some genres in which we don't have current publications, but we are excited about those, literally having something on deck in most of those. And we've got one imprint in which we don't have, well, 2. That's our business and our education imprints.
tell me about the business and education. What do you mean by that? Like maybe having professors write books and bring to you? Okay. Okay. So you're open for that.
Yes. So we have an education imprint, and we have a business imprint as well, which is one. And we are, excited about searching and finding someone who wants to, partner with us and becoming our inaugural author for those imprints.
An inaugural author. Now, when you talk about a business book, what are we talking about? Like Wordsmith for Dummies? Or, I mean, what kind of business are you talking about? Workshop?
It could be a workshop book. It could be a business book on finance. It could be on marketing. It could be on starting a business. It could be anything that's related to business. It's pretty wide open in terms of the imprint itself. And so maybe at some point it may need to be refined, but right now it's wide open because it's open because business is a wide open field, and it's related to marketing, it's related to sales, and just other business related topics.
So tell me about, I know you have an expert designer right now. No, okay, let me back up, I'm sorry. So PentoPress goes live when?
It is live now.
Yay!
Yes, we are live.
Okay, and the website is?
PentoPressByLadero.com.
PentoPressByLadero.com. So everyone, audience, please go check it out. If you have any questions, do you have a contact sheet? I'm sure there that they can fill out.
Yes.
Yes, on the website. So you have this expert designer now, and tell us about the journey to him. And how is it that is he just innate in what he does and he comes up with the right cover, or what is his process to get it to you?
It's a partnership. And so what I typically do is provide him a little bit of information about the book. I tend not to provide him a whole lot of information because I want him to have the freedom. Yeah, I don't want to skew what he thinks, because sometimes he comes up with things that I haven't considered that may work for a cover, or that the author hadn't considered that may work for the cover. So that is his field of expertise. We work with primarily 2 cover designers. In the course of doing that, I've tried other designers as well. And so right now we have a fantasy book that is coming out this fall, and we are working with an illustrator. This is my first experience working with an illustrator. And so it's enlightening. The author happens to be, who is Donald Simpson, happens to be an illustrator himself. And so he is I've learned a lot, because his attention to detail is exactly what you want in a cover, and particularly a fantasy cover. And so the process of working with this new illustrator has been enlightening. It's also been very informative, and I think we will be in a spot to really have a good relationship with him for years to come.
We met at a book festival in Maryland, and he was sitting there by himself, not talking to anyone. Shout out to my friend, Donald. But I went over and I said, oh my God, look at this work you've done. And the cover of the book, and he had little graphic models about all his monsters.
Yes.
You know, I'm always amazed at the minds of the people who are in the industry. Always amazed. And so, yeah, I'm glad you two connected, and that should be, yeah, he has a phenomenal mind. I don't think he'll ever run out of books. It's like
I don't think so.
The Black Star Wars Mr. Donald Simpson. And so I don't write in chapters, and I'm sure that's driving you crazy. But do you prefer people to write in chapters? And I'm gonna tell you why I don't write in chapters, because I can't keep up, right? I always have to go back to whatever that scene was. And the scene doesn't necessarily have a chapter. Do you understand what I mean? So if I went back to a scene, you'd have 35,000 chapters in one book, right? So that's kind of why I don't do it. But do you prefer your authors to write in chapters or something similar?
I prefer authors to write in the way that will allow them to get the book out of them, because we can take care of the mechanics afterwards. There are times, even when people write in chapters, that we go back and from an editorial point of view, we think a chapter may end better.
Let me stop you 1 second.
So
go ahead.
So I prefer authors to really get their story out in the way that works best for them, because we make, from an editorial point of view, when we go to edit the book, we may decide that a chapter ends at a better spot from where the author may think it should end.
Right, I understand.
Even with a book ending a certain way. So for example, one of our clients we work with, and this is pre-PentoPress, but he would be a PentoPress client. Right. So in the course of with his book, we I recommended, why don't you end the book here as opposed to here? Don't give this portion. Let's just end it like right here. And the book worked better that way.
So you can't, that's good that you don't push people to do a writing process that they're really not comfortable with, right?
No,
because
I do not.
Yeah, because writing in chapters, even though it may flow better, it can really stop you if you have to think of the name of the chapter or give it a title, or it can just really stop your flow from working. So, and what tips will you listen? You don't have a children's book. Is that correct?
We have a children's book pending.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so that'll be your inaugural book of a children's book. Right. So are you interested in more children's books? Can we tell the audience? Yeah. That you are very interested in being a children's book publisher? Okay.
Absolutely. We have a children's line, which is Kids Do Read. That is our imprint for children's books.
So the chat is, I have a friend that wants to publish a cookbook. How would you like people to connect with you?
They should connect with us through, they can do it through inquiries at PentoPressByLadero.com, and depending on which way they want to. So it depends, after a conversation with them, we determine how they really want to publish. Some people think they want to self-publish until, they have the consultation and realize how much it actually takes to self-publish.
Right.
And not just monetarily, but what it takes in terms of time, like how many moving parts there are to getting a book out. Because it seems in the current space with technology and the fact that someone can, write a book and 72 hours later, have it online. But a lot of times it's the finer touches to it that make the difference, right? Yes, there is stuff that sells that is not done well. But, at the end of the day, you really want people to remember your book, just not the outside. You have a nice cover outside, but the inside, it is different. And so I bake cakes. And so one of the things I find that the cake must look good and taste good too. And so, but if I had my preference, I would not care whether the outside of the cake was bad, as long as the cake tasted good.
Rakia says she forgot the rest. So say that again about the
inquiries at PentoPressByLadero.com.
Yeah, by Ladero.com. And you're right. You can look at it's like a good sweet potato pie. It might look good, but the minute you put it in your mouth, you know something's missing, right?
Yeah.
It just is not quite right, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, what tips can you give a writer to assist with the publishing of their books?
I think be willing to take some time. That is the first thing I would say. Writing takes time. And certainly you want to ride the wave on things.
Mhm.
I can certainly say that is true. But writing takes time, and you really have to give yourself some space for when things don't go as well. So you got to have some space in there for errors. You got to have space in there for supply errors. They may not even be your errors. They may be supplier errors.
Right.
And I've been where I have not accounted for that, and it's killed a deadline, right? It's killed a project. It's dampened the author's enthusiasm because I
Yes.
didn't account for something else going wrong that was outside of my control. So I would say give yourself plenty of time. Give yourself time with the writing process so that you write your book several times, before you give it over. That always helps. And sometimes some people do that in parts, right? They will write and review that portion and then start writing the next piece. Some people will write it all, then read it and review it. And so whatever that process may be for you as an author, may not be like the process for someone else, but you must always give yourself some time to make sure that the book works, and it has to work for you as a reader.
Yes.
I would say if you're an author but you're not a reader, then there's something wrong with that, because you're writing something that you want people to read, but you yourself are not a reader. So just be mindful that may come through beyond a very nice cover, beyond fancy marketing. That may come through more that you are not a reader versus being a writer, because I think the very best authors, the very best writers are people who read.
I agree with you. Yeah. I think, yeah, I totally agree. Except that sometimes you introduce people to reading.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, and so that's important too. I do know several male friends of mine that say, I only read periodic. And I thought, well, that's the most boring thing I've ever heard in my life. So why don't you try something different, whatever that is. And if you can't get through it the first 2 days, put it down and go back to it, right?
Yes.
So sometimes you can recruit people to just read something different. Let's talk about the cookbook. Now, we had the gentleman on. We did a YouTube with him, which I thought was fabulous.
Yes.
And you're going to do another one.
Yes.
What are you going to do different? Now, I thought that was fabulous. I thought the pictures were good. I mean, just because you work in the spirit of excellence, there are things you thought were terrible. I didn't think they were terrible. But in the spirit of excellence, what are you going to do different?
Well, one of the things we're going to do different is give ourselves a little more time to get a cookbook out. That's extremely important. I cannot stress enough in terms of time. Time is important because you really have to see how things come out. So, for example, with the cookbook, we did the first hard print proof, and we put it on a one weight of paper and realized it was not the weight that we needed for the book.
For that particular
book, we needed a heavier weight paper. And so we went back to the drawing board. We also had issues in terms of cover design. It ended up being that we used a photo from Tommy that we gave to our cover designer at Sheer Genius, and we said, look, here is this great photo that Tommy has taken. We're going to make this the cover, and we all loved it at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah.
And that is, it's Tommy's on. He gets the credit for doing the photography for his cookbook. That is, interior wise, we're going to do things a little differently in terms of layout. And so, in fact, Tommy's book is, because I am still not 100% with this book, we are laying out his book again, interior wise, and we're going to re-release it later this year.
And we talked about, if you do a cookbook again, that a YouTube and a commercial kitchen with one of that author's famous dishes, whatever one that they want to do, should be done and put not into the cookbook, of course, but someone will say, well, let me go here and see him making or her making this recipe and how good it looks and people tasting it. And, that's just more marketing for the book itself. So hats off to you for doing that, because the cookbook and Miss Watley, she's not on any longer, they are really cocktail table books, right? And so they're a little different than just, 5x8 paper. A lot of other things have to come into play. So yeah, hats off to you for even trying.
Oh, yes. Even the references for a cookbook, I cannot tell you the number of times that we went back to make sure that recipe references were correct in the index, because, things would shift because we were like, no, that needs to be like this. And all your things move along with that. But although you may have those things automated in terms of fields, you still need to go back and make sure every single page, every single reference to another recipe was indeed the same, that it all matched.
Yeah.
A cookbook is certainly a work of love.
Well, but it's the people who buy it at the end who really love the recipes that make it even, make it really worthwhile. And he's a fantastic guy. And we actually went into his home and videoed it, and it was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah. So is there anything we did not touch on that you would like to discuss? I mean, I don't think I know everything. So if I missed a question, please.
No, I think we're excited about PentoPress by Ladero. We, as I said before, Ms. Watley is the inspiration for that. We did her book, From the Outhouse to the Little Red Schoolhouse. That's a Jerry story. I always tell her book is bespoke. This is a custom book. When it comes to you, it is very, it's packaged differently. There are all these, there are extra things in there really to engage you. From her background in the arts, it is in education, she always incorporates that. And so the style of her book, her humor, all of that shines through. And so she's really the inspiration for us. She was the first project that I took on, for someone who wanted to do it on their,
Thank you, Mama
do
Tony.
it themselves.
Mama Tony just showed the book. Did you see it?
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Yeah.
And we've had great response to the book. And if you ever get a chance, as she gets back out and travels and be able to catch a From the Outhouse book review, I'd say certainly joining. You will not be disappointed.
And to our audience, it's based in Ocoee, Florida. So if you are from that area or know that era when a lot of stuff happened, this is the book for you to read and to get. Ocoee was a mess. And okay, so asking, tell us about the Emerging from the Curb anthology with the children.
Well, that one is an adaptation from Angie B's production. She did a series of confinement chronicles, um, just different topics and subjects, people's experiences throughout the pandemic, which is still ongoing and so very relevant. Even and I think years from now, people will still, remember, COVID-19
Yeah,
and the
I will.
impact of the impact of COVID-19. Yes, we will.
Yeah, I will,
um,
for sure.
because and in that, one of the things that she did was an anthology of children emerging from the curve. And it is a group of children from a school in Michigan. And they started writing, and she done, I believe, a workshop with them. Angie's on, so maybe she could explain a little bit more about the inception of it. But we published this book, and it's good. It's, um, unfortunately, we've had a few things in terms of just with COVID impacting our communication, with children and their parents. But other than that, um, we're pleased. The kids were pleased to get their copy, so that's nice.
Angie, we have a few minutes. Do you want to speak on that? She must step away. Where can I get a copy of the Akoi book? My nephew just moved there from California.
You can order from the outhouse through laderopress.com. If you go there and go to our online store, you will see both copies. It comes in two sizes. It comes in the smaller table size, coffee table size, and then it comes in the very large coffee table size.
Yeah, so just go to the website and order a copy. It is a moving, horrific, but real story. But she does have some very poignant things that happen about the arts for children in that community. And it is well worth the read. I think there's another question here. Hold on 1 second. Oh, Angie said she's just happy about the project. So tell our audience how to stay in touch with your company. And of course, we always ask for a pearl of wisdom at the end. So we need a connect and a pearl of wisdom, please.
You can connect with us. We have the same number for, Ladero Press and PentoPress by Ladero. Our number is 888-369-6206. You can always contact us at inquiries or info at Ladero Press or at PentoPress by Ladero. And I should stop and say that everything, the companies have Ladero because those are the first two letters of each of my name. And it made it really easy for, it came to me one day and I was like, yeah,
let me do that.
And so that's why it's Ladero. There, the LA is for my first name, and the D is for my middle name, and the RO is for my last name. And feel free just to visit any of our websites, and we have contact information there as well. You're able to browse the packages that are there on PentoPress by Ladero. We offer editing services, a couple different types of editing services. And we also offer services that, support you in terms of your launch for your book as well. So we think it will work very well. And I and the editors are excited about the formalization of something that, I've been doing all along. So we're excited about it, and they're excited about joining. I should say that one of our editors, Bonnie McClendon, is actually the initial editor from the Outhouse. And Zandra is the editor for Confinement Chronicles. That is her first editing credit with Ladero Press, and so I'm excited about them being on board to really help us provide the level of service that all of us have a vision for when it comes to publications.
Will you repeat the number again? Sorry, please.
888-369-6206.
Thank you. And so your pearl of wisdom would be?
Pace yourself.
Do what?
Pace yourself.
Okay.
I have a friend who tells me life comes at you fast. And I would say pace yourself. Pace yourself as an author, so that you are able to do what you want to do, but don't burn yourself out at the same time. Pace yourself as a publisher so that you do the things you want to do and don't burn yourself out at the same time. And so that you always maintain the joy about what it is you're doing.
Right.
And the passion for it. You know, at Ladero Press, our line is your story is, we are in the business of publishing, but your story is really what our passion is. We want to help you to get out your story in the best way. And that it represents you, because at the end of the day, they may remember the publisher, but they'll remember that it's your book because your name is on the book. And so we want you to be proud, whether you are with us via Ladero Press or you're with us via PentoPress by Ladero. We desire at the end of the day that your story is a good representation of who you are and what you desire that book to be at the end of the day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. What a phenomenal message for everybody who wants to publish a book. If you didn't get your questions answered, you can always send me an email at freshbookfestivals@gmail.com, freshbookfestivals@gmail.com. I'll make sure that LD gets that question. But it's not, when people tell you, I know an author, everybody writes, everybody doesn't. Because it takes time, it takes resiliency, because you always have to come back. Because I don't know too many people can just write a book all at one time. And you have to have a tribe of people who are willing to see you through the process and through the process of excellence, right? And that's what publishing is all about. I am excited about my 3 books coming out as a second edition under Ladero Press. And
we're excited to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And The House That Jack Built, I'm so excited to be, the first book from her company will be The House of Alice Diamonds, The House that Jack Built. So thank you so much, LD. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate you working in the spirit of excellence. And I appreciate you putting up with me as an author, because that's not easy. And I thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I want to take a moment for Janice Kearney to just give us a little information about Read, Write, Share, which is coming up in May. Opened up May 1st and goes into August.
Hi, thank you, Donna. It's actually in April, and this year I think it's April 23rd.
I mean, the anthology opened up May 1st.
Oh, the anthology is
Yes,
May 1st through August 1st. It's open right now. There's a $25 submission fee. You can go to the website. It has the information on the website, rwsweekend.org. And it is, it's also stories about, resiliency after COVID and other things that happen in our lives.
Yeah, it is well worth putting your pen to paper and sending it in. Not to say that you will be picked, but you don't know who's going to be reading your story. Right. So it's not about the $25 that you spend. It's about the professionals that are going to be involved in this whole thing. And you might be the one to get picked up for something else, right? So please be a part of it. That's Read, Write, Share. And the anthology series opened up May 1st and closes in August. And the website is again, Janice?
It's www.rwsweekend.org.
All right, thank you, everybody. Any more questions for LD? If not, we're going to sign off of Zoom in on a fresh conversation this evening. We will not be here over the 4th of July holiday. I plan to be somewhere in the sun and water. We will be here the second week in July, bringing you a new author. I think you're going to be really excited about him. He's a musician and he's telling his story. And so we will see you then. Thank you all for being on Zoom and on a fresh conversation. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.